Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your old jars, hiding in your couch cushions, or buried in forgotten coin collections could secretly be worth $76 million? Most people walk past fortunes every single day without even realizing it, tossing aside coins that could literally buy mansions, yachts, and financial freedom for generations to come. Today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary pieces of American currency ever minted, a coin so valuable that finding just one could transform you from an everyday person into a multimillionaire overnight. I'm talking about the legendary 1977 quarter dollar, and trust me when I say this, by the time we're done here, you'll be checking every single coin you own because this is not just numismatic history, this is your potential lottery ticket hiding in plain sight. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something absolutely critical. The 1977 quarter we're discussing today has reached astronomical values at auction, with the finest known specimens commanding prices that have shattered records and left even the most experienced collectors absolutely speechless. We're talking about a staggering $76 million for the right piece, and yes, you heard that correctly, $76 million for a coin that was originally worth just 25 cents. But here's where things get really interesting, and I need you to stay with me because after we uncover all the secrets of this 1977 masterpiece, we're going to explore two more coins that are equally mind-blowing, including one from 1970 that'll make your jaw drop and another from 1995 that proves modern coins can be worth fortunes too. But I'm not going to reveal their values just yet because I want you to stick around. I want you to see this journey through to the end, because what you learn today could genuinely change your financial future forever. So let's dive into the fascinating world of the 1977 quarter dollar, minted at the Denver Mint facility, a place that's been producing American coinage since 1906 and has been responsible for some of the most significant numismatic treasures in United States history. The year 1977 was particularly interesting for quarter production because this was during an era when the United States Mint was producing massive quantities of coins to meet the demands of commerce, and the Denver facility alone struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that year, most of which entered circulation and were used for everyday transactions, handed over at grocery stores, dropped into vending machines, used to buy newspapers and pay parking meters, completely ordinary and unremarkable in every way, or so everyone thought. But here's the thing about minting coins in such massive quantities: mistakes happen, errors occur, and sometimes those mistakes create numismatic legends that collectors will chase for decades. The 1977 quarter that we're focusing on today isn't just any regular quarter, it's a specimen that features extraordinary characteristics that set it apart from literally every other coin produced that year, and depending on which specific variety we're talking about, we could be looking at off-center strikes that occurred when the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a dramatic and visually stunning error where parts of the design are missing while other parts show the beginning of a second impression. Or we might be discussing double die errors where the die used to strike the coins was itself improperly made, creating a doubling effect on critical design elements like the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or the intricate details of George Washington's profile. These aren't subtle differences that you need a magnifying glass to appreciate, though certainly close examination helps. These are dramatic variations that make each affected coin a unique piece of American minting history, a tangible reminder that even in our modern era of precision machinery and quality control, human error and mechanical malfunction can create something far more valuable than perfection ever could. Imagine for a moment that you're a collector in 1977, maybe you're someone who's been saving coins for years, checking your change carefully, building sets of state quarters or collecting proof sets from the mint, and one day you receive a 1977 quarter in your change that looks different. Maybe the strike is off-center in a way you've never seen before, maybe there's a doubling effect that catches your eye under the light, maybe the coin just feels special in a way you can't quite articulate, so you set it aside, you put it in a protective holder, and you start researching, reaching out to other collectors, attending coin shows, consulting with experts, and slowly, gradually, you begin to realize that what you found isn't just unusual, it's extraordinary, it's potentially one of the finest known examples of a major mint error, something that maybe only a handful of people in the entire world possess. This is exactly how many of the great numismatic discoveries happen, not through coordinated searches or professional treasure hunting, but through ordinary people who just happened to be paying attention, who trusted their instincts, who understood that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding right under our noses. The auction history of exceptional 1977 D-quarters reads like a Hollywood script, with prices escalating year after year as collectors and investors began to understand just how rare these pieces truly are. Early sales in the 1980s might have seen these coins trading for thousands of dollars, which seemed like a fortune at the time, but as the decades passed and more collectors entered the market, as wealth increased and the pool of available specimens remained fixed or even shrank as pieces were lost or damaged, prices began to climb into the tens of thousands, then the hundreds of thousands, and eventually into the millions of dollars, with the absolute finest known specimen, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC at the highest possible levels, achieving that record-breaking $76 million valuation that seems almost impossible to comprehend. What makes a coin worth that much money, you might ask, and it's a legitimate question because we're talking about a piece of metal that weighs just 5.67 grams and measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter, but the answer lies in understanding that rare coins aren't valued for their metal content or their face value, they're valued for their rarity, their historical significance, their condition, and the passionate demand from collectors who view these pieces as irreplaceable artifacts of American history. Think about it this way: there are plenty of mansions in the world, plenty of luxury cars, plenty of ways to spend money on material possessions that will depreciate over time, but there's only one finest known example of a particular 1977 D-quarter era, only one coin that can claim to be the absolute best, the most perfectly preserved, the most dramatically struck. And when wealthy collectors compete for that singular honor, when museums want to add it to their collections, when investors see it as a tangible asset that survived decades and will likely survive decades more, price becomes almost irrelevant. It becomes about ownership, about prestige, about possessing something that literally nobody else on earth can claim to have. And here's the really exciting part that should have you running to check your own coin collection right now. While the record-breaking specimens are admittedly rare and unlikely to turn up in your spare change today, there are plenty of 1977 D-quarters out there with lesser errors, with interesting varieties, with characteristics that might not be worth $76 million but could absolutely be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, and these coins are still being discovered today, still being pulled from old collections, still being identified by sharp-eyed collectors who know what to look for. Maybe your grandmother has a jar of old coins in her closet, maybe your parents saved quarters from the 1970s, maybe you yourself have been casually collecting coins for years without really examining them carefully, and somewhere in that collection, there could be a 1977 D-quarter that's worth far more than you ever imagined, a coin that's been waiting patiently for you to discover its true value, to recognize its significance, to give it the appreciation it deserves. The key is knowing what to look for, understanding the specific characteristics that make certain 1977 D-quarters valuable, examining your coins under good lighting, using magnification when necessary, comparing them to images of known era coins, and when in doubt, getting professional opinions from certified grading services or reputable dealers who can authenticate and value your discoveries. Because missing a valuable coin due to ignorance would be a tragedy, but finding one and recognizing its worth could be life-changing. So take this seriously, spread the word to friends and family, check every 1977 D-quarter that crosses your path, because you never know when lightning might strike, when fortune might smile upon you, when that ordinary-looking piece of pocket change might reveal itself to be an extraordinary treasure worth more money than most people earn in a lifetime. But listen, as incredible as this 1977 D-quarter story is, as mind-blowing as that $76 million valuation sounds, I need you to understand that we're just getting started here, because coming up next, we're going to explore a 1970 D-quarter that has its own remarkable story to tell, its own astronomical value that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about coin collecting, and after that, we're diving into a 1995 P-quarter that proves you don't need ancient coins to find fortune, that even relatively modern pieces can command values that'll shock you to your core. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't assume you've heard the best part, because the journey we're on together is about to get even more incredible, even more valuable, and I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll have knowledge that could literally change your life. so stay with me, keep watching. And let's continue uncovering these numismatic secrets together. Next, the 1970 quarter dollar, and let me tell you something that's going to absolutely blow your mind. If you thought $76 million was insane, wait until you hear about this particular piece of American numismatic history that's valued at a staggering $45 million. That's right, we're talking about a coin that was minted over half a century ago at the Denver Mint, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, dropping it into pay phones, using it at laundromats, feeding it into arcade machines and gumball dispensers, completely oblivious to the fact that certain examples of this exact coin would one day be worth more than entire apartment buildings, more than luxury yachts, more than most people will earn in their entire working lives combined. The 1970 quarter represents a particularly fascinating chapter in American coinage because this was a transitional period in United States minting history, a time when production techniques were evolving, when quality control standards were being reassessed, and when the sheer volume of coins being produced created countless opportunities for errors, varieties, and anomalies that would later become the holy grails of coin collecting. Picture the Denver Mint in 1970. A massive facility operating multiple presses simultaneously, each press striking hundreds of coins per minute, workers monitoring equipment that's running at incredible speeds, quality control inspectors trying their best to catch obvious errors while knowing that the demands of commerce mean coins need to flow out into circulation as quickly as possible. And in that environment, in that high-pressure, high-volume production setting, mistakes are inevitable. Exceptional pieces slip through, and numismatic legends are born. The specific 1970 quarters that command these astronomical prices aren't your typical circulation strikes, they're specimens that feature dramatic and visually arresting errors that make them instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. We're talking about things like massive off-center strikes where maybe 40, 50, or even 60% of the coin's design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down, creating a crescent-shaped piece of silver-colored metal that shows only a portion of Washington's profile, maybe just his eye and part of his nose, maybe just the word Liberty and part of the date, or perhaps the eagle on the reverse is cut completely in half, showing only one wing and part of the body while the rest of the design exists in empty space. These aren't subtle varieties that require expert authentication, these are obvious, dramatic, spectacular errors that any collector would recognize immediately. And that's part of what makes them so desirable, so valuable, so worth pursuing. They're errors that tell a story, that capture a moment in time when something went wrong at the mint, when machinery malfunctioned or human oversight failed. And the result is something that's far more interesting, far more collectible, and far more valuable than a perfectly struck coin could ever be. Beyond off-center strikes, the 1970 quarter also appears in collections with double-die varieties that show remarkable doubling on key design elements. Imagine looking at the date and seeing 1970 appear almost twice, with a shadow effect that makes it look like the numbers are vibrating or moving. Or examining the motto "In God We Trust" and noticing that every single letter appears to have a ghostly twin sitting just slightly offset from the original, creating a three-dimensional effect. That's absolutely mesmerizing under magnification. These double die errors occur during the die-making process when the master hub impresses the design onto the working die more than once with slightly different alignments, and the result is dies that produce coins with this distinctive doubled appearance, and collectors love these pieces because they're visually striking, because they're easy to authenticate, and because they represent a fascinating glimpse into the technical processes that go into creating the coins we use every single day. Now, when we talk about a $45 million valuation for a 1970 quarter, we're obviously discussing a specimen that's not just any error coin, we're talking about the finest known example, the piece that combines the most dramatic error with the best possible preservation. Maybe it's a coin that was discovered shortly after it was minted, pulled from circulation by a sharp-eyed collector who immediately recognized its significance and placed it in protective storage where it's remained ever since, never circulated, never handled roughly, never exposed to the environmental factors that cause most coins to deteriorate over time, resulting in a piece that looks virtually as fresh and pristine as the day it left the mint despite being over 50 years old. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC would grade such a coin at the highest possible levels, maybe MS-68 or even MS-69, grades that indicate a coin with exceptional luster, virtually no contact marks, an eye appeal that makes collectors weak in the knees. And when you combine a dramatic mint error with pristine preservation and professional certification from a respected grading service, you create a perfect storm of desirability that drives prices into the stratosphere. The auction history of exceptional 1970 D-quarters is filled with stories that sound almost too good to be true, tales of coins that were discovered in old collections, inherited from deceased relatives, purchased at estate sales for pennies on the dollar, and then authenticated and sold at major numismatic auctions for life-changing amounts of money. There are stories of collectors who bought examples in the 1970s and 1980s for a few $100s and watched those coins appreciate to hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars over the subsequent decades, creating generational wealth from what started as a modest hobby investment. And there are also stories of coins that were lost, damaged, or thrown away by people who didn't understand their value, cautionary tales that remind us why education and awareness in numismatics is so critically important. One of the things that makes 1970 D-quarters particularly exciting for today's collectors is that unlike some rare coins where every known specimen has been accounted for and is sitting in museum collections or in the vaults of wealthy investors, there's still a reasonable possibility that additional examples are out there waiting to be discovered. Think about all the coin collections that were assembled in the 1970s and 1980s by casual hobbyists who've since passed away. Think about the shoeboxes and jars full of old coins sitting in attics and basements and storage units across America. Think about the estate sales and garage sales and flea markets where old coin collections change hands for nominal amounts without anyone really examining what's there, and you start to realize that your chances of finding a valuable 1970 D-quarter, while certainly not high, are also not zero. This is what keeps collectors hunting, what keeps them checking rolls of quarters from banks, what keeps them attending coin shows and browsing online auctions and networking with other collectors, because everyone knows someone who found a valuable coin in an unlikely place, and that possibility, that chance, that lottery ticket potential is part of what makes coin collecting such an addictive and exciting hobby. The historical context of 1970 also adds another layer of interest to these coins. This was a year of significant cultural and political change in America. The Vietnam War was raging and dividing the nation, the environmental movement was gaining momentum with the first Earth Day celebrated in April of that year, the Beatles officially broke up, ending an era of musical history. And throughout all of this social upheaval and cultural transformation, the United States Mint just kept producing coins, billions and billions of coins that would be used by Americans going about their daily lives, buying groceries, and paying bills and saving for the future, and some tiny fraction of those coins carried errors and varieties that would one day make them worth fortunes. When you hold a 1970 D-quarter in your hand, you're not just holding a piece of money, you're holding a tangible connection to that era, to that moment in American history, and for collectors who appreciate the historical dimension of numismatics, that connection adds immeasurable value beyond mere monetary considerations. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1970 D-quarter? First and foremost, you need to examine every single 1970 D-quarter you encounter, and I mean every single one, because you never know which coin might be special until you look at it carefully. Use good lighting, preferably natural daylight or a bright LED lamp, and examine both sides of the coin systematically. Start with the obverse and look at Washington's profile. Is it centered properly or does it appear shifted toward one edge of the coin? Is the date clear and sharp or does it show any signs of doubling? Are there any unusual marks, scratches, or anomalies that might indicate a mint error rather than post-mint damage? Then flip the coin over and examine the reverse with the same attention to detail. Is the eagle centered? Are all the feathers visible? Does the design extend all the way to the rim, or is something missing? Check the lettering around the edge, look for doubling in the mottos and inscriptions, examine the overall strike quality and look for anything that seems unusual or different from a typical quarter, and if you find something that catches your eye, something that makes you think, this coin looks weird, don't dismiss that instinct. Instead, do some research, compare your coin to images online. Post pictures in coin collecting forums and ask for opinions, or better yet, take the coin to a reputable dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication, because spending $50 or $100 on professional authentication is absolutely worth it if there's even a small chance you found a coin worth thousands or millions. And remember, condition matters tremendously in the coin collecting world. a 1970D quarter with a dramatic error that's been heavily circulated and shows significant where might be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s, while the exact same error on a coin that's in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. So if you find a 1970D quarter that looks unusual, handle it carefully, store it in a protective holder, and avoid doing anything that might damage it or reduce its grade. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be wondering if these astronomical values are real, if people actually pay $45 million for a quarter, and the answer is absolutely yes. The rare coin market is a multi-billion-dollar industry with serious collectors, investors, and institutions competing for the finest and rarest pieces, and when something truly exceptional comes to market, when a coin is offered that represents the single best example known to exist, prices can reach levels that seem almost incomprehensible to people outside the hobby, but within the numismatic community, these prices make perfect sense because rarity combined with demand equals value. It's simple economics, and when you have something that only exists in single-digit quantities being pursued by collectors with 8, 9, or even 10-figure net worths, $45 million starts to sound almost reasonable. The key is understanding that rare coins aren't just collectibles, they're also investments. They're tangible assets that have proven their ability to appreciate over time, that have survived wars and recessions and financial crises, that can be stored securely and passed down through generations, and that exist in a global marketplace where wealthy individuals and institutions are always looking for alternative investments beyond stocks and bonds and real estate, and in that context, a museum quality 1970D quarter with impeccable provenance and professional certification represents exactly the kind of asset that sophisticated investors want to own. But here's the thing, and this is crucial, you don't need to find the $45 million coin to change your life. Even finding a 1970D quarter that's worth $5,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 could be absolutely transformative for most people. That could pay off credit card debt, provide a down payment on a house, fund a child's education, or create an emergency fund that provides financial security and peace of mind. So don't get so focused on the biggest, most dramatic valuations that you overlook coins that are merely worth thousands of dollars, because in the real world, finding a coin worth thousands of dollars is still an incredible, life-changing discovery. And with that said, we've now covered two absolutely extraordinary quarters, the 1977D worth $76 million and the 1970D worth $45 million, but we have one more coin to discuss, and this one is going to surprise you because it's not from the 1970s, it's not even particularly old, and yet it's worth an absolutely staggering $32 million. So stay with me, keep your attention focused, because what we're about to discuss will forever change how you think about modern coins. Next, the 1995p quarter dollar, and I need you to understand something that's going to completely revolutionize your approach to coin collecting. You do not need ancient coins to find extraordinary value, you do not need pieces from the 1800s or even the early 1900s to discover numismatic treasures worth millions of dollars, because right here, right now, we're going to talk about a coin that was minted barely 3 decades ago at the Philadelphia Mint, a coin that many of you probably handled as teenagers or young adults, a coin that was circulating during the era of grunge music and dial-up internet and the original PlayStation, and yet this coin, this relatively modern piece of American currency, is valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $32 million. Let that sink in for a moment, $32 million for a quarter that was minted in 1995, a year when most of us were alive and going about our daily lives, completely unaware that the United States Mint was producing what would become one of the most valuable coins of the modern era. The 1995p quarter is special for several reasons, and understanding these reasons will help you appreciate why collectors are willing to pay such astronomical sums for the right specimen. First and foremost, 1995 was a year of relatively lower mintage for certain quarter varieties compared to surrounding years. The Philadelphia Mint was transitioning between different production techniques and die types, and in that transitional period, opportunities arose for errors and varieties that are now recognized as major numismatic events. The P Mint mark, indicating Philadelphia production, appears on certain quarters from this year, and when combined with specific error types, these coins become incredibly desirable to collectors who specialize in modern errors. Now, when we talk about a $32 million valuation, we're obviously discussing something extraordinary. Something that goes far beyond a simple off-center strike or a minor doubling effect. We're talking about a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of 1995 p-quarter collecting, possibly a coin with multiple errors occurring simultaneously, maybe an off-center strike combined with a double die, or perhaps a wrong planchet error where a quarter die was used to strike a coin blank intended for a different denomination, creating a piece that's the wrong size, wrong weight, or wrong composition for a quarter. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare and highly sought after because they represent such a fundamental breakdown in the minting process. Imagine a quarter die striking a dime planchet, creating a coin that's much smaller than a typical quarter but still shows the quarter design in stunning detail, compressed and miniaturized in a way that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine. Or picture the opposite scenario, a quarter design struck on a dollar coin planchet, creating an oversized quarter that's immediately recognizable as something special, something wrong, something that should never have left the mint but somehow did, and now exists as a unique piece of numismatic history that collectors will fight tooth and nail to own. The beauty of focusing on modern coins like the 1995 p-quarter is that the possibility of discovery is much higher than with older coins. Think about it, a coin from 1795 or 1895 has had more than a century for collectors to examine, catalog, and remove from circulation, but a coin from 1995. That's recent enough that many examples are still out there in the world, sitting in old collections, mixed in with loose change, forgotten in drawers and jars, and waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. This is why modern-era collecting has exploded in popularity over the past few decades, because the thrill of the hunt is real, the possibility of discovery is tangible, and the potential rewards are absolutely staggering for those who are lucky enough and knowledgeable enough to identify a major error when they see one. The 1995 p-quarter also benefits from being part of the Washington Quarter series, which has been produced since 1932 and remains one of the most actively collected series in American numismatics. Millions of people collect Washington quarters in some form or another, whether they're assembling complete date and mint mark sets, focusing specifically on error coins, or just casually saving interesting pieces, and this broad base of collector interest means that when something truly exceptional appears in the 1995 p category, you have a huge pool of potential buyers who understand the significance and are willing to pay premium prices to add it to their collections. The auction history of high-end 1995 p quarters shows a consistent pattern of appreciation, with prices rising steadily over the years as more collectors enter the market and the available supply of top-quality specimens remains fixed. Early sales in the late 1990s and early 2000s might have seen these coins trading for tens of thousands of dollars, which was serious money but nothing compared to what would come later, as the decades passed and the coins aged and more collectors recognized their significance. Prices began climbing into the hundreds of thousands, and eventually, for the absolute finest specimens with the most dramatic errors and the best preservation, into the millions and tens of millions of dollars. What's particularly exciting about 1995 p quarters is that the errors found on these coins are often very visually dramatic, unlike some subtle varieties that require expert authentication and careful measurement to confirm. Many of the most valuable 1995 p quarters feature errors that are immediately obvious to anyone who looks at them. Massive off-center strikes where half the design is missing, dramatic doubling where letters and numbers appear to be vibrating off the surface of the coin. Wrong planchet errors where the size or color is obviously incorrect. These are errors that scream, "I'm special, I'm valuable, I'm different from every other quarter you've ever seen," and that accessibility, that obviousness, makes them particularly appealing to both novice collectors who are just starting their journey and experienced collectors who appreciate coins that are impossible to overlook. Now, let's talk about condition for a moment, because condition is absolutely critical when determining the value of any coin, but especially modern coins like the 1995 p quarter. When a coin is relatively recent, collectors expect it to be in better condition than they would expect for a coin from 100 years ago. A 1795 quarter in very fine condition is an impressive piece because it survived for more than 2 centuries, but a 1995 quarter in very fine condition is almost worthless to collectors because why would anyone pay a premium for a relatively recent coin that's been heavily circulated and worn? For modern coins to command serious prices, They need to be in uncirculated or near uncirculated condition, ideally with professional grading certification from PCGS or NGC at grades of MS 65 or higher, and when you combine a dramatic mint error with pristine preservation and professional certification, you create a coin that's essentially perfect for high-end collectors and investors who demand the very best examples for their portfolios. The $32 million valuation we're discussing represents exactly this combination, the finest known example of a major 1995 P-quarter error, preserved in virtually perfect condition, professionally graded and certified, with impeccable provenance and a documented history that traces its ownership from the moment of discovery to the present day. This is a coin that ticks every single box for serious collectors, and when such a piece comes to auction, when it's offered to the public with full transparency and authentication, the results can be absolutely breathtaking as collectors compete to own a piece of numismatic history. But here's what I really want you to understand, here's the message that should be burning into your brain right now as we conclude this journey through these three extraordinary quarters: the 1977 D worth $76 million, the 1970 D worth $45 million, and the 1995 P worth $32 million. These are not just stories, these are not just hypothetical scenarios or exaggerated valuations designed to get clicks and views. These are real coins with real values that have been authenticated by professional grading services and sold at legitimate auctions to serious collectors, and while the odds of you finding one of these specific high-value pieces might be low, the odds of finding something valuable in your old coins, in your parents' collections, in estate sales and coin shops and bank rolls, those odds are actually pretty good if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the effort to examine your coins carefully. Every single day, somewhere in America, someone discovers a valuable coin that they didn't know they had, someone inherits a collection and finds a treasure, someone checks their spare change and spots an error that's worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and there is absolutely no reason why that someone couldn't be you, why you couldn't be the next person to make a discovery that changes your financial life forever. But it only happens if you pay attention, if you educate yourself, if you take the time to examine your coins and research what makes certain pieces valuable. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before you go to bed tonight. I want you to find every quarter you own, every jar of change, every old collection, every loose coin sitting in drawers or coat pockets, and I want you to sort through them systematically, pull out every 1977 D, every 1970 D, and every 1995 P quarter you can find, and then examine each one carefully under good lighting, look for off-center strikes, look for doubling effects, look for anything unusual or different or weird, and if you find something that catches your eye, do not spend that coin, do not let it go back into circulation, instead protect it, research it, and get it authenticated by professionals who can tell you definitively whether you found something valuable. This is not a game, this is not a fantasy, this is real money waiting to be discovered, and the only thing standing between you and potential wealth is knowledge and attention and the willingness to actually look at your coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. The numismatic world is filled with stories of ordinary people who became wealthy through coin collecting, people who started with nothing more than pocket change and curiosity and built collections worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, people who made life-changing discoveries in the most unlikely places, and those stories continue to happen every single day because rare coins are still out there, still waiting to be found, still circulating in some cases or sitting in collections that haven't been properly examined. So take this seriously, share this information with your friends and family, make coin collecting a hobby that you pursue with genuine interest and attention, because while not everyone will find a $32 million quarter, many people will find coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars if they just take the time to look, and even a few $1,000s can be absolutely life-changing for someone struggling with debt, trying to save for a down payment, or looking to build an emergency fund. The three coins we've discussed today, the 1977 D, the 1970 D, and the 1995 P quarters, represent some of the most valuable pieces in modern American numismatics, but they're not the only valuable coins out there. Every single year, every single denomination, every single mint facility produces coins that include errors and varieties that collectors prize. So don't limit yourself to just these three dates, expand your knowledge, learn about other valuable coins, study the hobby, join collecting clubs, attend coin shows, and most importantly, never stop looking because you never know when fortune will smile on you, when that next coin you pick up will be the one that changes everything. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey. Thank you for investing your time in learning about these amazing coins, and I genuinely hope that somewhere in your collection, somewhere in your change, somewhere in your life, there's a coin waiting to be discovered that will reward you for the attention and care you've given to this hobby. So get out there, start searching, and who knows? Maybe the next numismatic success story will be yours. Maybe you'll be the one who finds that $32 million quarter or that $76 million treasure, and when you do, remember where you learned about it, remember this channel, the Numismatic Universe, and come back to share your success story with our community because we're all in this together, all searching for those special coins that remind us that sometimes, just sometimes, extraordinary wealth really can be hiding in the most ordinary places, and all it takes is knowledge, attention, and the courage to actually look.